Let me be completely honest with you before we even start this breakdown. Everything the internet spent the last 2 weeks saying about Caitlin Clark, every single take, every doomer tweet, and every so-called analyst who got online to declare the magic was gone, that she was figured out, and the Indiana Fever were a sinking ship, every last one of them just got cooked. Completely torched, deep fried, and served right back cold on a silver platter with a side of humble pie. Welcome to Legacy Heat Hoops. I am Dre Fyfer, and tonight we are not just talking about a basketball game. We are talking about one of the most complete redemption arcs in the history of this 2026 WNBA season. A story that went from organizational chaos to a 17-point blown lead to cold-blooded logo range glory, all in just 40 minutes at the Entertainment and Sports Arena in Washington, D.C. Because if you thought Caitlin Clark was finished, if you thought the Indiana Fever were done, if you thought Stephanie White had finally cracked the franchise into a million little pieces, then you clearly were not tuned in on Monday night. What happened against the Washington Mystics was not just a win. It was a declaration, a flare gun fired directly into the face of every critic, every troll, and every narrative merchant who spent the last 2 weeks stacking takes on the most scrutinized player in basketball. Let us get into every single layer of this story because there is a lot to unpack. To truly understand the magnitude of what happened Monday night, you have to understand just how bad things got for the Indiana Fever in the early weeks of 2026. And I mean bad, not rough patch bad, not just a slow start. I am talking full-scale organizational crisis, a 3-alarm fire, everybody pointing fingers, and nobody putting out the flames. Coming into this season, the Fever were loaded with heavy expectations. Caitlin Clark was back healthy after spending the majority of 2025 on the sideline fighting through injuries. This roster was stacked with proven talent. The championship talk was totally real. And then almost immediately, the entire thing started unraveling in ways nobody could have predicted. Indiana stumbled to a rocky record right out of the gate, and those numbers barely even scratched the surface of what was actually happening. Because the performance issues were one thing, but the off-court drama was a completely different beast entirely, feeding the narrative machine with more fuel than anyone could manage. The exact moment that truly broke the internet happened during a loss to the Portland Fire. Cameras caught what appeared to be a heated, animated exchange between Clark and head coach Stephanie White during a timeout. Clark was visibly upset, gesturing and clearly giving her coach a piece of her mind on national television, and then White subbed her right out of the game. Clark walked back to the bench, shook her head, and sat down with the kind of body language that tells you everything you need to know without saying a single word. The internet absolutely erupted. Clips of that moment went viral within minutes. Every corner of basketball social media was dissecting the footage, analyzing every single expression, and declaring that the Fever were a ticking time bomb ready to detonate at any second. White addressed it publicly afterward and tried to frame it as nothing more than a coaching moment between two competitive people. But here is the problem. When the cameras catch that kind of energy between a franchise star and her head coach, a press conference quote does not make it disappear. The narrative had already taken on a life of its own. Dre's opinion? I am not saying Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark hate each other. I am not saying the locker room is fully on fire. But when you are a franchise built around one transcendent player and that star appears to be at war with her coach on national TV, something is fundamentally off. Whether it was frustration over substitution decisions or an offensive system not fully leveraging Clark's unique skill set, or just a natural pressure point that comes when a talented team underperforms in front of the largest audience in women's basketball history. Something real was simmering beneath the surface. You cannot coach a generational talent like she is just another piece of the rotation puzzle. And some of those sideline decisions looked exactly like that from the outside. Things got worse before they got better. Reports surfaced that the Fever held what multiple players described as a long and intense team meeting following back-to-back victories. One player described it as nearly 2 hours in that room. Coaches started the conversation, but it eventually evolved into a players-only session, the kind of meeting where real things get said without any filter, where either a team fractures completely under the weight of it all or rediscovers the common ground that brought them together in the first place. Based on what happened in Washington on Monday night, it is pretty clear which direction that meeting went. And before that team meeting could even do its work, Clark still had to survive the narrative beating of her life on social media. Her shooting efficiency over a 4-game stretch had cratered in ways that gave the critics exactly what they wanted. Viral posts and accounts were pulling up her shooting percentages game by game, laying them out like a legal brief against her. People were declaring she was figured out, saying she was barely recognizable as the same player who had electrified the entire sport. One viral post reduced her to an elite range shooter with no efficiency and suspect defense. Another claimed the league had finally cracked the code on containing her. A clip appearing to show her missing a high five from a teammate during a loss circulated everywhere, with the most damaging possible spin attached to it. Chemistry issues, attitude problems, a franchise in free fall. In my opinion, the social media reaction to that rough stretch was completely disproportionate. 4 cold shooting games in a row does not mean a superstar has been figured out forever. Every legendary scorer in professional basketball history has endured long, brutal, cold streaks. In reality, rival teams were scheming much tougher against her in year 3. She faced real rhythm issues returning from an injury-shortened season, alongside some actual inconsistency that required fixing. But the magic is gone? A fall from grace? That is just outrage theater pretending to be actual basketball analysis. And Monday night handed every single one of those critics the exact receipt they deserved. After a big bounce-back win over Atlanta, where Caitlin Clark told her doubters in no uncertain terms to shut up, Indiana rolled into Washington, desperately needing to make a statement. The Mystics stood at 4-6, clawing for survival in Commissioner's Cup play. Both squads had something massive to prove. For the first 30-plus minutes of action, the Fever looked exactly like the powerhouse their fans always knew they could be. Clark came out absolutely firing. She drained a sidestep three-pointer early on, then followed it with a signature step back. Her mechanics were pure, her decision sharp, and Indiana controlled the tempo completely. Dropping 10 points in the first quarter alone, she made the offense look completely different from the messy, isolation-heavy play that had crippled them for weeks. The ball was humming, the spacing was ideal, and Aliyah Boston completely dominated the paint, creating massive advantages that unlocked the entire offense. Indiana built their lead steadily before exploding, stretching it to 17 points after Clark pulled up for a deep, uncontested 3 early in the third quarter. A late contest by Cass Prosper drew a whistle, and Clark coolly converted the 4-point play to push the lead to its absolute peak. By then, the game felt like a wrap. A 17-point cushion in the WNBA with a whole half left to play. Fever fans were already looking ahead to the next matchup. But this is the WNBA in 2026, where no lead is safe if you stop taking care of the ball. Yet the Fever, despite all the talent on this roster, all the experience, and a 2-hour team meeting discussing this exact issue, still coughed up 20 sloppy turnovers during this game. 20 turnovers. At the pro level, especially in a game where your team is fighting for respect and your franchise player is trying to quiet 2 weeks of harsh criticism. You simply cannot gift your opponent 20 extra possessions and expect to win. And these were not even forced turnovers from some lockdown Washington defense. We saw sloppy passes thrown right into traffic and players driving headfirst into double teams without any escape plan. It was the same fundamental breakdown in ball security we have watched all year, and the Mystics capitalized on every single mistake. Myisha Hines-Allen sparked the comeback. After staying quiet early on, she suddenly exploded from beyond the arc in the second half, hitting 4 out of 4 from deep. Every single big bucket dropped in the second half, right when Indiana was supposed to be comfortably coasting to an easy victory. Then, Hines Allen drilled a massive three from the wing with just 2:11 left on the clock, igniting a rapid 7-0 run that completely flipped the game. Hines Allen followed that with 2 clutch free throws. Shakira Austin converted a layup, and suddenly, in the blink of an eye, Washington led 74-73. That 17-point cushion evaporated. A game that should have been sealed was suddenly a desperate one-possession nail-biter. And this is where we have to talk about the coaching. When your squad starts giving up points like a broken faucet, great coaching requires you to step in before the collapse becomes total. You call a timeout, settle the players down, and execute an easy play to stop the bleeding while reminding them of what got them the lead. Instead, the Fever endured a painful, slow-motion collapse that absolutely nobody on the bench seemed able to stop. The gorgeous ball movement from earlier vanished. Instead, those bad isolation-heavy habits that plagued them all year came roaring back at the absolute worst time. During the most critical moments of the fourth quarter, Clark was basically iced out of the offense, letting Washington dictate the entire game on both ends. In my opinion, Stephanie White has deep coaching issues that a single buzzer beater cannot solve permanently. Giving up 20 turnovers is not just on the players. It is a systemic failure reflecting how this roster is prepared for high-pressure moments when your franchise star is your primary playmaker yet gets iced out when the game is on the line. The system itself is clearly broken. White got incredibly lucky on Monday, not because her squad pulled off the victory, but because they relied on pure individual genius. She got lucky because the very star she made things difficult for over the last 2 weeks saved the coaching staff from a truly devastating loss. That talk about accountability has to happen internally, whether they ever admit it publicly or not. And then came the exact moment that made any hope of a miracle feel totally impossible. With Indiana clinging to a 1-point lead and 36 seconds left, Clark stepped to the charity stripe to extend the cushion and seal the game. These are the exact high-stakes moments you dream of. The ball is in your hands. The game is on the line. Your team desperately needs you, but Clark steps up and misses the first shot. Then she missed the second. The entire arena fell dead silent. For generational talent, missing back-to-back free throws right there is completely unthinkable. It was as if 2 weeks of missed shots, viral clips, and brutal hot takes all came crashing down on her right there at the line. For 99% of players, that nightmare sequence breaks them. Confidence shatters, the pressure crushes, and the game quickly slips away. But the basketball gods had other plans for Caitlin Clark on Monday night. Right after those misses, Aliyah Boston stepped up with a massive clutch steal. It was the perfect hustle play, showcasing exactly what Boston brings to this franchise far beyond the stat sheet. Clark pushed the pace in transition, scanned the floor, and zipped a smart, controlled pass to Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell kept her cool, slowing down just enough to sink the layup and put Indiana up 75-74 with 11 seconds left. That exact sequence, failing at the line, then instantly making the perfect transition play, shows you exactly what sets Clark apart. It is a tiny but crucial window into her greatness. She never dwells on mistakes, she just processes and plays on. But then Sonia Citron stepped up for Washington, sinking 2 free throws, 76-75. Mystics, just 4.3 seconds left. Indiana's ball, but no timeouts to advance it. Inbounding from deep in their own half, down 1 with under 5 seconds left, and the Washington defense knew exactly where that ball was going. This is where most squads crumble. This is the exact pressure that breaks franchises. This is when the crushing weight of a season, the drama, the criticism, the tense huddles either snaps you in half or shows the world what you are truly made of. Indiana took their last timeout. Stephanie White mapped out the plan. Sophie Cunningham stepped to the sideline to inbound. And the Washington Mystics defense locked their eyes on one player, the only person in that building who could hurt them. Cody McMahon, a rookie playing with veteran instincts, gambled big. She lunged hard into the passing lane, trying to pick off the inbound to Clark. She almost had it. Her fingertips were inches away from the biggest moment of her young professional career. But she was a split second late, and her gamble took her out of the play. Cunningham's pass zipped cleanly across the hardwood, landing perfectly in Clark's chest. McMahon flew right past, clutching at empty air. Clark caught it right on the Commissioner's Cup logo, stamped on the floor. 31 feet out from the hoop, 1.2 seconds left. Every single soul in that building, defenders, teammates, screaming fans, already knew exactly what she was about to do. No hesitation, no second guessing. For Caitlin Clark, pulling up from that deep is not a gamble. That range is her home. She has been firing from that deep since before casual fans even knew her name. Her feet set, her form looked absolutely perfect. Rising up over the empty space where McMahon had just stood a heartbeat ago, she let it fly. Perfect splash, nothing but net. Indiana 78, Washington 76. The entire arena exploded into absolute madness. The Fever bench erupted, and their wild celebration told you everything about what this moment truly meant. This was not just about the standings or a cup record. This was for the soul of a squad that had been bruised, questioned, and doubted for 2 straight weeks. Clark roared. Cunningham, who had delivered that flawless pass under absolute suffocating pressure, was completely losing her mind on the court. And online, every single critic who spent the last 2 weeks writing off Caitlin Clark's 2026 season suddenly went completely silent. It was the very first go-ahead game winner of her professional career, regular season or tournament. Her first time hitting the clutch bucket that seals the win in the dying seconds of a pro game. Sinking it from 31 feet with just 1.2 seconds left, right after missing 2 crucial free throws. You cannot write a script like that. It is unreal. Post-game, Coach White told reporters that we sometimes take generational talent completely for granted. She admitted she does not know if the outside noise will ever fade, but made it clear this is just what Caitlin does. She hits big shots in massive moments. And while those words were sincere, we also have to be completely honest and look at the entire picture. Yes, Clark hits the big ones. Monday night proved that in the most dramatic fashion. But we cannot just turn this into a simple feel-good story while ignoring the deeper team struggles that made her heroics necessary. Clark finished with 19 points, hitting 4 of 10 from deep and 7 of 16 overall, plus 5 assists, 3 boards, and a steal. But she also gave up 5 turnovers. We cannot ignore that stat. It points right back to the sloppy play that led to 20 total turnovers, nearly costing Indiana the entire matchup. Yet when she was locked in, her shooting was masterclass. The sidestep 3, the step back 3, that 4-point play, pushing the lead to 17, and then that deep logo game winner. It showed a superstar who, at her best, operates on a totally different level. Aliyah Boston deserves massive credit, though it will likely get overshadowed by the Clark headline frenzy. 14 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. That is a dominant all-around shift that anchors a team, even if it misses the highlight reel. That clutch steal giving Clark the transition chance to find Mitchell after the missed free throws was the play that kept Indiana alive. Mitchell added 15 points and 3 assists, while Lexi Hull shot a perfect 3 for 3 from the field. This was a true team effort, kept alive by everyone, then saved by an unforgettable moment only one player on earth could deliver. The victory pushed Indiana to 6-5, nudging them above 500 and tying them for second in the Eastern Conference. Their tournament record climbed to 2-1. These are real, meaningful standings, not just moral victories to feel good about. The Fever are finally back in the conversation where they belong, and Monday's dramatic, chaotic outcome points them in the right direction. But as I see it, one spectacular logo game winner does not magically fix all their problems. We have to be clear, because people treat this like a narrative reset when the hard, structural work is still ahead of them. The sloppy turnovers require systematic fixes. Those second-half defensive meltdowns need actual tactical adjustments, not just hyped-up motivational speeches. The connection between the coaching staff's decisions and Clark's role as the primary floor general must be completely aligned. It cannot just sound good in press conferences. It has to actually work on the court when the fourth quarter tightens up and mistakes cost games. The Fever clearly have championship-level talent. They proved it. But talent without a real system leaves you relying on a desperate logo shot every single night. And eventually those logo shots stop falling. It worked on Monday. But relying on that is a losing game. That is the hard truth Stephanie White and this entire Indiana franchise must face, even while they celebrate the win. But Monday night offered something real, undeniable proof of concept. Proof that Caitlin Clark is far from finished and definitely not solved. Proof that the short memory and ice-cold composure defining generational stars are alive and well in number 22 of the Indiana Fever. She choked at the line, missing 2 free throws that could have ruined her night in the worst way. But she sprinted back, made the perfect pass, and then sank the biggest bucket of her career from a distance most pros would never dream of shooting. That is the full Caitlin Clark experience. It is alive and well, and Monday night proved it is just beginning. The noise and criticism will never stop. The drama surrounding this franchise has a massive gravity, well impossible to escape. When you are the most watched team in women's basketball, yet Monday gave Indiana something no board meeting, press conference, or off-court PR spin could ever manufacture. An unforgettable, jaw-dropping moment, a true historic highlight that is going to completely define the early chapters of this 2026 season. And it came off a shot that no sane player should have attempted, except she is the one player in the world for whom that shot makes perfect sense. That is Legacy Heat Hoops. That is the entire game in a nutshell. If this breakdown hit you the right way, do me a favor and smash that like button. That is how we feed the algorithm and keep this channel alive. Let me know in the comments, was that the craziest shot of the year? Are the Fever actually turning a corner, or is the coach drama still a ticking time bomb? Give me your raw takes below. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now and turn on notifications. This 2026 WNBA season is just heating up, and we will be right here for every crazy moment. I am Dre Fyfer. See you next time.